You're walking across the room, maybe just to grab a burp cloth or answer the door, and suddenly you notice it. Your baby's eyes move with you. Not randomly, not vaguely. They actually follow you. And for a second, it feels almost shocking. Because this tiny person, who just weeks ago seemed to drift in and out of sleep and stare past everything, is now clearly watching where you go. A lot of parents have this exact moment. They pause. They test it. They move left. The baby's eyes go left. They lean closer. The baby locks on. And the question hits almost instantly. What does this mean? Is it just eyesight getting better? Is it recognition? Is it attachment? Are they starting to know it's you? Or is this one of those things parents read too much into because they want every tiny change to mean something big? Here's the truth. When your baby starts tracking you with their eyes, it usually is a big moment, but not for the simple reason most people think. Because this isn't just about seeing. It's about your baby's brain learning how to organize the world. It's about attention, movement, face preference, emotional familiarity, and one of the earliest signs that your baby is beginning to understand that certain people matter more than the background. In other words, you've seen this before, but what's really happening may be much deeper than most parents realize. And once you understand what your baby is actually doing in that moment, you may never look at that quiet little stare the same way again. Because first, we need to talk about the explanation most people give, and why it only tells part of the story. The common explanation is simple. Your baby is tracking you because they can see better now. And that's true, just not complete. Yes, vision is developing fast in the early months. Newborns can see light, shapes, movement, and faces, but their distance vision is blurry, and they do best with things that are fairly close. That's part of why your face becomes so important so early. When you hold your baby, feed them, talk to them, or lean in, you're often exactly where their eyes can best work. So when parents notice their baby following them with their eyes, it's tempting to reduce the whole moment to this. Their visual system is improving. But if that were the whole story, your baby would seem equally fascinated by everything moving through the room. The lamp shadow, the curtain, the ceiling fan, a bright towel, a dog running by. And yes, babies do notice some of those things too, especially high-contrast shapes and movement. But many parents notice something more specific. The baby doesn't just track motion, they track people. And very often, they track one familiar person in particular with an intensity that feels different. That matters, because babies are not just learning how to see movement, they're learning what is worth following. That's a huge developmental difference. A moving object can attract the eyes, but a familiar caregiver can hold attention in a deeper way, because that person doesn't just move. That person speaks, comforts, smells familiar, appears at meaningful times, and changes how the baby feels. So when your baby tracks you, the milestone is not simply visual clarity, it's visual attention beginning to sort the world by relevance. And that raises a much bigger question. How does a baby go from seeing shapes and motion to treating your face and your movement like something special? That's where the science gets really interesting. In the beginning, your baby's visual world is limited, but not empty. They are not seeing the room the way you see it. They are working with contrast, closeness, outlines, light, movement, and repeated patterns. Faces are powerful in that world, not because babies understand faces the way adults do, but because faces are visually rich, emotionally meaningful, and constantly paired with voice, touch, and comfort. This is why early tracking often starts in the context of closeness. When you lean over the crib, change a diaper, talk during feeding, or move slowly across your baby's view, you're giving their developing visual system the exact kind of input it can practice on: a face, a voice, a predictable distance, a moving target that returns again and again. Around the first couple of months, babies begin improving in visual coordination. Their eyes start working together more smoothly. They can hold focus better. They begin following a moving object more intentionally. By around 2 to 3 months, many babies can watch you move and follow with their eyes in a way that feels much more deliberate than those early newborn glances. So yes, one part of this milestone is mechanical. The visual system is maturing. Eye muscles are coordinating. Focus is getting steadier. Tracking becomes smoother instead of brief and scattered. But even here, emotion is already in the room. Because your baby is not developing vision in a lab. They're developing it inside a relationship. The face they practice on most is usually the face that appears when they're hungry, overwhelmed, soothed, spoken to, cuddled, or reassured. So the skill of tracking is being built on top of repeated human meaning. That means when your baby follows you with their eyes, they may not just be proving that their vision is growing stronger. They may also be showing that their brain is beginning to connect sight with significance. And once that happens, tracking becomes more than a visual milestone. It becomes the beginning of something social.
Here's the deeper twist most parents don't hear enough. Babies don't simply look more at what they can see clearly. Over time, they also get better at finding and staying with what matters socially. That sounds subtle, but it changes everything. Researchers studying infant attention have found that very young babies can show an early pull toward faces, but their attention in the real world is still immature. Busy backgrounds, bright patterns, random movement, and general visual salience can compete strongly for their eyes. In plain English, a young baby may notice many things, but not always in a stable, organized, person-focused way. Then something begins to shift. As the months move forward, babies become better at using attention, not just eyesight. They get more able to lock on to the face, voice, and motion that belong together. They start learning that when this face moves, that voice goes with it. When that person approaches, something usually happens. Comfort, interaction, relief, play, regulation. So when your baby tracks you, they may be doing several things at once. They may be practicing visual control. They may be matching your face to your voice. They may be predicting where you're going. And they may be learning one of the earliest emotional lessons of life. Some people are reliable sources of information and safety. That doesn't mean your baby is consciously thinking, "There goes my secure base." But development doesn't wait for words. The body learns patterns first. Your baby starts to discover that your presence is not just another moving shape in the environment. You are a meaningful event. That is why this milestone can feel so emotional for parents. Without realizing it, you're witnessing the early overlap between visual development and relationship development. Your baby is not just watching movement. They are beginning to organize the social world around familiar people. And once you understand that, a quiet little eye movement suddenly carries a lot more emotional weight. Which leads to the part many parents need most: what this moment actually means for you. What it means is not that you have to perform for your baby all day. It does not mean they need constant stimulation. It does not mean you've created dependence by holding them too much, responding too often, or being the one they seem to watch most. If anything, this milestone usually points in the opposite direction. A baby who tracks a familiar caregiver is often showing that their brain is using relationship as a map. Your face, your voice, your movement, and your timing are helping the world feel more organized. That is not weakness. That is how early development works. This is why simple things matter so much more than parents sometimes realize. Moving slowly into view, talking while you approach, letting your baby study your face, holding them at a comfortable distance, giving them those small, repeated moments where they can watch, anticipate, and connect. To adults, it can look like nothing. To a baby, it is practice in attention, social learning, and trust. Now, one careful caution. Babies develop at slightly different paces, especially if they were born early. But if by around 2 to 3 months, your baby does not seem to notice faces, does not follow movement at all, rarely makes eye contact in close interaction, or one eye consistently turns in or out rather than gradually coordinating, that's worth bringing up with your pediatrician. Not as a reason to panic, but as a reason to check in early and clearly. Most of the time, parents are simply watching normal development unfold. But paying attention without fear is part of good parenting too. Because the goal is never to obsess over every milestone. The goal is to understand what your baby may be telling you through it. And what this particular milestone says is surprisingly beautiful.
When your baby starts tracking you with their eyes, it is not just a cute visual trick. It is one of the earliest signs that the world is becoming less random, patterns, expectations, and meaning. And somewhere inside that process, your baby is beginning to learn something powerful. There is someone worth watching. Someone whose face keeps showing up. Someone whose voice matches their movement. Someone who helps things make sense. That is why this moment can hit parents so deeply, even if they can't explain why. Because on the surface, it looks tiny, just a pair of eyes following you across a room. But underneath, it carries the early architecture of attention, recognition, connection, and trust. So if your baby has started doing this, you do not need to turn it into pressure. You can simply receive it. Meet their eyes. Move a little slower. Talk back. Let them study you. Let yourself feel the wonder of being, quite literally, one of the most important things in their visible world. And if your baby is not quite there yet, that does not automatically mean something is wrong. Development is a process, not a performance. Many milestones emerge through repetition, closeness, and time. But when it does happen, now you'll know what you're really seeing. Not just better eyesight, not just curiosity, but the beginning of your baby learning that people matter, that familiar faces are worth following, and that connection itself is becoming something they can see. If this helped you understand your baby in a new way, stay close for the next one. Because once you realize why your baby tracks you with their eyes, the next question becomes even more fascinating.